Before I ever launched McLean Forrester, I spent years in the trenches of massive software projects. Let me tell you, these projects weren't just about coding. They were about security failures that kept me up at night, team conflicts that threatened everything, and clients whose culture nearly broke us. But each of those moments became the foundation of how I run my own firm. And in this video, I'm going to take you inside those stories to the 5 toughest lessons I've learned before starting my company, and how you can use them to avoid disaster, build stronger systems, and protect your people. By the end, you'll walk away with a playbook most leaders only earn the hard way, like I did. I want to start by painting a picture. It's 7 a.m., I'm not even at work yet, and I get a call from the cloud support team. They just detected strange activity on one of our servers. Something had gone wrong. When I got to work, I realized it was terribly wrong. We just discovered that one of our servers had been breached. Our client's data was at risk. We quickly gathered the team together, notified all the right people to address the situation. And once we were able to get past the shock and get those processes in place, we really discovered what had happened. This wasn't a sophisticated hacker takedown. This was a preventable situation. Someone had moved too fast, skipped a step, and left the door wide open. That night, I realized how this experience would change the way we built technology from this point on. Security isn't just a box to check. It has to be a part of every person's decision. It's everybody's responsibility every day. That's the first lesson, but it wasn't the last. And over the years, I've collected 5 big ones. Lessons that taught me not just how to build software, but how to build a company worth trusting. So let's go through them one by one. So that breach, it happened because a developer was moving too fast and not thinking about security. We were all relying on someone else to be thinking about that, and that was so wrong. And so here's what I learned. When security lives in a silo, it fails. Every engineer, every designer, and project manager even needs to understand the basics. That's things like we don't push code that's not tested. We ask ourselves what could go wrong before every release. And we slow down enough to check all the locks before we open the doors. After that incident, I built a new rhythm into my teams. We were thinking with a security mindset, and that became embedded into our processes. It didn't slow us down. In fact, it actually saved us countless hours of firefighting later, because nothing's more expensive than cleaning up after a breach. Now, security wasn't the only thing that nearly wrecked us. The truth is, sometimes the biggest threats weren't even technical at all. They were human. And that brings me to lesson number 2. Picture this. 2 brilliant teams working on the same project. One working on the front end, the other integrating the back end. Now, individually, they ran really smooth and they were brilliant. But together, it was creating a nightmare. They weren't speaking the same language. We were having meetings that were ending in frustration, and we were starting to slip on our deadlines. So instead of working on the product, I found myself putting out fires between people. Now, at first, I ignored this, thinking maybe the technical leadership would sort of help sort these things out, but that didn't work. What I realized is that the friction inside our team was like technical debt building up, and the longer we let it pile up, the harder it was to clean. So we started building in some honest one-on-one conversations. We started having retrospectives where people could speak freely and talk about what was bothering them. And we had alignment sessions where we didn't just talk about the what, we started talking about how we would treat each other while we were doing it. Now, this wasn't always comfortable and it's not easy, but it was transformative for our team. Because when people feel safe to voice those concerns early, you prevent those blowups later. But here's the kicker. Most software projects don't fail because of bad code. It's always a people and communication problem behind it. So that leads me to something that's even tougher to talk about, clients. There was one project where this client's culture was frankly just toxic. Meetings with our team where they were being belittled. We were having unrealistic demands tossed on us, kind of like grenades. And every week I would watch my people lose a little bit more energy. And at first I was thinking maybe that's just part of how it is to work with some clients, but I don't think that's true. If you let clients mistreat your team, you're teaching your team that they don't matter. And no project is worth that. So we had to draw a line. We had to set boundaries with that client, which isn't always easy. We had to explain that respect isn't optional. Our team worked best in a partnership, not under fear. And you know what? Over time, the client slightly adjusted. It was slow, it was painful, but they did. And here's the lesson I learned out of that. Sometimes as the leader, your job isn't just about protecting the deliverable. It's about protecting your people. Because the second you stop doing that, then you've lost everything. At McLean Forrester, this is one of our core values, taking care of our people, because we know they'll take care of the work. Well, of course, protecting your team is one thing, but what happens when you forget to protect your business? Here's where lesson 4 comes in. Well, this one kind of stings. We signed a contract with a do not exceed clause buried deep inside that was added at the last minute. At the time, it kind of felt harmless, just standard paperwork. But halfway through the project, things shifted. Scope started growing, complexities piled up, things we didn't know about at the beginning, things we didn't estimate. And suddenly, we were doing hundreds of hours of work for free. Why? Because that clause locked us in. To be honest, I felt foolish. I should have caught that. I should have negotiated that differently. But in the heat of winning the deal, you tend to overlook the fine print. And that was the day that I learned you never underestimate the contracts. They aren't just legal filler. They shape the entire future of a project. Now, I approach contracts with a different lens. Is the scope clear? Are changes requested accounted for? And does the payment model protect both sides fairly? And most importantly, does this contract align with reality? Because wishful thinking on paper becomes very painful in practice. But even when the contract is perfect, there's another trap leaders fall into. And I learned it the hard way when I realized our clients didn't actually understand half of what we were telling them. So we started having issues on our projects where we were misaligned on scope or timeline or deliverables. And it was happening frequently enough where we thought, there's got to be something more that we can do here. There's got to be something we're missing. And maybe we're not communicating these things well enough. So we did something a little radical. We ran a usability study with our own usability researchers on our own status reports. We asked the client to read them. We asked them what they understood. We asked them what they thought they were going to get delivered when. And what we learned was humbling, but powerful. It turns out we weren't communicating what we thought at all. Clients didn't understand the jargon we were using, and the status of the project was not clearly explained in terms that they understood. So we revamped the entire status report. Then we brought in clients again and asked them what it meant to them. And this time we hit the mark. Trust went up and miscommunication went down. So here's the truth. In business, communication is your product. If your clients don't understand you, they won't trust you. So looking back on all these lessons, things like security, team dynamics, boundaries, contracts, communication, there's a thread that ties them all together. And it's not just about building great software. It's about building trust. Trust with your team, trust with your clients, trust in the systems you create. So that day when I got that call about the security breach, I thought success was about fixing things fast. Today I know success is about building in a way that avoids collapse in the first place. So those are the 5 biggest lessons I've learned before launching McLean Forrester. If you're building something big, whether it's software, a company, or a team, I hope you can take these lessons and skip some of the scars that I had to learn the hard way. And if this video helped you, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. And if you're building something ambitious and want a partner like us who's been through the fire and will treat you with respect and trust, check out McLean Forrester. We'd love to help. We're always up for a chat.